Hello everyone, very good evening to all of you. We were discussing about verb and so far we are done with the first classification, which is main verb and auxiliary verb, right? And these things are already discussed. We have discussed partial modals in the last class. Okay. So now let's get started with the next topic of verb, which is transitive and intransitive verb. So verb can also be classified on this basis, transitive and intransitive. What does it mean? Like whenever you see dictionary and if there is a word which has the grammatical profile of verb, then you see INTR and TR written with that verb, right? That gives you the information about that particular verb, that this is transitive or intransitive. So transitive means what? If there is a transition happening, right, action is impacting the object of the verb actually. So for example, if I write a sentence like, she writes a column, and the second sentence in intransitive is she writes. So what do you see over here? That this writes is what? It is transitive, and here this writes is intransitive. Like the same word is acting as intransitive and intransitive both. Whenever there is an object of the verb, like writes is the verb and it has its object a column, right? This is the object of the verb. In that case, this writes will be called what? Transitive. Like if you ask this question, what does she write? The answer you get is a column. So this is object. And here, if you ask what does she write, there is no information. So this is what intransitive, it doesn't have its object, right? So on this basis, we can classify verb actually in three categories. Like there are certain verbs, they are transitive, then intransitive, and then we have verbs which can be used in transitive as well as intransitive, both the manners, right? Like the example we have just written, that will fall in this third column. So here, this write is what? That can be used transitively, intransitively both. Read, he read, right? He reads, and he reads Hindustan Times. So read can be used in both the manner, sing can be used in both the manner, right? Open can be used in both the manner, close can be. A lot of verbs can be used in both the manners, but there are certain verbs which are either transitive or intransitive, and we need to take care of them actually, because questions are based on those verbs only, which are either transitive or intransitive. Like if I ask you, out of rise and raise, what we did in the last class, which one is transitive, which one is intransitive, then what will be your answer? Which will take its object? Rise and raise, then you have lie and lay. So rise is intransitive, whereas raise is transitive, because raise always takes an object. Like you have raised a question, you have raised an issue, you have raised a child, right? Government has raised the price. So raise will always take an object, whereas rise will not take an object, right? Prices are rising, sun rises in the east, and don't confuse this, in the east is not the object. This is the adverb of direction, that in which direction sun rises. We have discussed about lie and lay as well. So lie will fall in intransitive category and lay will be under transitive, because lay takes its object, lie doesn't, right? So how do they ask question? We have certain verbs. I'll write couple of sentences, and with those sentences we'll try to figure out that which are those verbs जो कि सिर्फ ट्रांजिटिव है या इंट्रांजिटिव है। She described about her project in a vivid manner. We have discussed about the issue comprehensively. I ordered for a cup of coffee. An unidentified person attacked on Sakshi when she was returning from her office. DM himself is investigating into this fraud case. He emphasized on the importance of integrity in life. So we have these 6 sentences. If I ask you, is there any grammatical mistake, error in these sentences or not, then what will be your call? What do you think? These sentences are correct or incorrect? How will you correct them? All the sentences are incorrect, but seemingly you may feel that they are absolutely correct. But describe doesn't take about, discuss will not take about, order will not go with for, attack will not go with on, and then investigate will not go with into, and emphasize will not go with on. So all these sentences have same sort of problem, and the problem was what? That these sentences have transitive verbs. Described is TV, it's transitive verb, transitive verb, transitive verb, and transitive verb takes direct object. It does not need any preposition before the object, right? So here investigating is what? It is again transitive verb, and emphasize is transitive verb. So transitive verb will take direct object, like she described her project, we have discussed the issue, I ordered a cup of coffee, attacked Sakshi. I think this S is missing. DM himself is investigating this fraud case. Looking into equals to investigate. Look into is a phrasal verb, right? And emphasize will not take on. So this is the lesson you get out of these sentences, right? What? With TV means what? With transitive verb, we use direct object, right? No need of preposition before the object. और यही वो तरीका है जिसके जरिए वो एरर क्रिएट करते हैं, बिकॉज बोलचाल की इंग्लिश में हम कुछ ऐसा ही यूज कर रहे होते हैं जैसा लिखा हुआ था. एंड दूसरी बात क्या, कि अगर आप विद intransitive verb if we want to use object, we need to put a preposition before the object. And a very common mistake, particularly in interviews, people do commit, like when someone asks you what is your hobby, a lot of people say listening music, and that is incorrect, because listen is an intransitive verb, and whenever you are putting any object to that, you have to supply a preposition from your side, and that is why listening to music is correct, right? Listen in or listen to, you have to use any of the prepositions, right, whatsoever suitable in that particular context with listen, right? So that's the thing you need to take care of. Now the next thing, which is based on verb, that is conditionals. Pretty mathematical structure. So there are 4 variants we have: type 1, type 2. Type 1 is called possible conditional because it is likely to happen. And what is the standard structure of that, of type 1? Like if I write a sentence, if you work consistently, you will succeed. This is the standard structure, right? Here what you see, that the conditional clause means starting with if is written in present indefinite. It is written in present indefinite. And here what you see, here we used you will succeed, right? So future indefinite. ये future indefinite में आपको दिख रहा है. That does not mean that future indefinite is not something which is correct to write over here. You just need to remember, like with will, we can also use, along with will, we can also use shall, may, or can, and it depends on the mood or the meaning we want to put forward, because modals are those verbs, helping verbs, which give you the information of certain mood, emotion, and feeling, right? So if you work consistently, you will succeed. A lot of time people have this confusion, like whenever you write a sentence in present indefinite, particularly the conditional clause starting with if, then you will always use will in the main clause, but that is not the case. That depends on the meaning or the mood, right? Like if you complete this assignment in time, we can discuss our next project. So if we complete this assignment today, we can discuss the next project. So here we have used can as per the requirement, right? So this is the type 1 possible conditional. Next one is type 2, and this is called improbable conditional. Improbable conditional. And what is the hallmark of this? Like this is unlikely to happen. If I won $1 million, I would go for a world tour. This is what? This is type 2. And what you see over here, if wala clause is written in, past indefinite, right? I won. And the main clause, what is the structure of the main clause? Here the past of will is used, which is would. So here subject plus would, could, might, should will be used as per the requirement, and because they are modals, they will take first form of the verb, like this one. So you can make sentences by using could, might, should, and here we can also formulate it like if is in present indefinite. If is in present indefinite, so in the main clause, subject plus will, oblique shall, oblique may, oblique can, plus V1. So this is the type 1. Type 2, and now the type 3. Type 3 is called impossible conditional, because the moment you are making this statement, at that moment, there is no possibility of that action to be happened. Impossible conditional. समय निकल चुका है. If you had driven a bit faster, you would have reached earlier. You would have reached earlier. So if you had driven a bit faster, what do you see? Which is obvious. If wala clause is in past perfect. This is written in past perfect, and the main clause is subject plus, like would have, verb ki third form. In the same manner, would have, could have, might have, should have, whatever is the requirement. So would, could, might, should, plus have, plus V3. So this is the structure. This is the structure. ठीक है, ये आपका स्ट्रक्चर हो गया टाइप 3 का. And one more important thing is, like this statement can also be written like, had you driven a bit faster, you would have reached earlier. So don't ever confuse that the sentence is starting with had, then it should be, interrogative sentence or something like that. So if that is the sentence, then that will be called interrogative. Like, had you completed that assignment? So that is an interrogative, and you will put a mark of interrogation, because the sign of period and mark of interrogation is the sign of a sentence. But here what you see, this is not a sentence, it's a clause of a sentence, right? It's not a sentence, it's a clause. And whenever you start a clause with had, that is what? That is actually conditional. That is conditional. So this particular part can also be written in this manner. And there could be swapping of the clauses as well, right? So if it is written like you would have reached earlier had you driven a bit faster, that is again absolutely fine. There is no problem in that. And there could be other variants as well. Like here, whatever we see, that is written in active voice, like as per the rule of tense. But वहां पे काफी सारे changes भी हो सकते हैं. Like the second variant is of the type 3 only. If he had not been kept separately, they would have attacked him. They would have attacked him. This statement made by a jail inmate of Ram Rahim. When that inmate came out, he made this particular statement in the media. This he is used for, this he has been used for Ram Rahim, and they is used for other inmates in the same jail. तो उसका कहना ये था कि अगर राम रहीम को अलग नहीं रखा गया होता तो बाकी कैदी उसके ऊपर हाथ साफ कर दिए होते. So if he had not been kept separately, they would have attacked him. And what you find over here, it is not written with the standard formula, as per the standard formula. It is not like had plus verb ki third form. What you see over here, had not been and then third form, means what? This part is written in passive voice, and what you see over here, they would have attacked. So this particular clause means the main clause is written in active voice. Main clause is in active voice and conditional clause is in passive voice. The second statement made by Mr. Salim Khan after the failure of tube light if someone else had been taken in main lead, ट्यूबलाइट के फ्लॉप होने के बाद उन्होंने ये स्टेटमेंट मीडिया को दिया था, क्योंकि बहुत सारा पैसा लगा था और फिल्म फ्लॉप हो गई थी, और वो डिस्ट्रीब्यूटर्स को कुछ पैसे मतलब वापस भी कर रहे थे, क्योंकि सलमान खान जब फिल्म में होते हैं तो बहुत पैसा लगा होता है. तो ट्यूबलाइट would have been become a successful movie. Now what you see in this particular sentence, here both the clauses are written in had been taken, are written in passive voice. Would have been, become, again it is in passive voice. So both the clauses are in passive voice. So this is not something what you just need to mug up कि नहीं ऐसे ही होता है. You need to read the sentence, you need to get the context, and then you decide that what kind of a structure that sentence should have. So passive, active, both the active we have already done, and now the fourth one, which will be the reverse of second sentence of type 3. So here if wala clause should be written in active voice. If my father had sent me to a good college, my fate would have been changed. My fate would have been changed. Now what you see, if my father had sent me, right? So this is in what? Active voice, right? My fate would have been changed. Again would have plus V3 नहीं आया, बीच में ये been भी आ गया. Means what? This is in passive voice. So there could be these four variants, and particularly type 3 is pretty confusing. It is most asked, right, in the exams as well. So would have, could have, like if you had prepared well, you could have performed much better. Means what? That there you had that potential, but you could not realize that potential in that exam. So you could have performed much better, or this project should have been completed 3 months back. Should have been completed. It is in passive voice. Pura ho jana chahiye tha. This is an unfulfilled past obligation. In that case, we use should. So just common sense you need to apply as per the mood, as per the meaning you are supposed to use. And now the type 4, which is called hypothetical sentence. Type 4, hypothetical conditional. If he were you, he would accept the offer. If he were you, he would accept the offer. This is what? This is hypothetical conditional. And there are two things you need to take care of. First one is like this is standard would plus V1 in hypothetical. And what you need to take care of is what? Like verb will always be verb irrespective of the subject. Whether it is he, she, I, whatsoever, verb will always be verb if the sentence is starting with if. And they ask question based on this because it, generally we use was with he or she or I. But when it is hypothetical conditional, you have to go with were. And the second thing you need to take care of is what? That you will go with subjective case. और ये हमने pronoun में पढ़ा था, आपको याद होगा, that complement of the be form of the verb should be written in subjective case. So subjective and objective of you is you only, right? So this is the standard structure of hypothetical conditional. So you can simply formulate it. If wala clause is subject plus were plus, like if I were a bird, if I were the prime minister of the country, जो भी हम बचपन में ऐसे लिखा करते थे, अगर मैं राजा होता, प्रधानमंत्री होता, if I were a king or what. So subject plus were, noun, or if that is a pronoun, that should be written in subjective case, right? And then subject plus would plus V1. This is the standard structure of hypothetical conditional. Sometimes we take would have plus V3 as well in hypothetical, and that depends again on the context. So this is conditional sentences, right? Would you like to solve a couple of questions based on conditionals? Let me put a couple of questions as well. Yes, the first one is, had he done his homework well, he would not have suffered this embarrassment. How will you correct it? Is there any problem? This is T3, type 3, and had he done his homework well, this can also be written in this form. If he had done his homework well, he would not have suffered, right? Standard structure, no error at all. Next sentence. If you had read the relevant literature carefully, you would have answered most of the questions correctly. If you had read the relevant literature carefully, you would have answered most of the questions correctly. Again, there is no problem at all. This is had read, past perfect, and again would have plus verb ki third form. Both are written in active voice. There is no problem, no error. Next one. I would have committed the same mistake of signing the sale deed if my agent would not have forewarned me. What is the problem in this sentence? I would have committed the same mistake of signing the sale deed if my agent would not have forewarned. It is absolutely clear that if wala clause should be written in past perfect, right? This is the conditional clause, and here what we see, would not have is written, which is incorrect. That should be written in past perfect. So if my agent if my agent had not forewarned me, right? This is the correct structure. Next one. Had he not reached in time, he would have missed a golden opportunity which comes in once in a while. Is there any error? Had he not reached in time, he would have missed a golden opportunity. Absolutely, there is no error at all. Both the clauses are written in a standard form. If I was he, I would not accept this project, right? This is type 4, and what we just discussed, this was will be replaced by were. If I were he, I would not accept this project. If you have read the instructions carefully, you would not have answered the questions wrongly. If you have read, that is again incorrect, would not have. This is type 3. Type 3 means what? If clause should be written in past perfect, and in past perfect we don't use have, it should be had. If you had read. If he had walked fast enough, he will get the bus. If he had walked, this is type 3. This is type 3. Will get is incorrect. Would have got. He would have got the bus. So don't go by your gut feeling. You just need to assess the standard structure and then you will decide. Our neighbors had repeated the same illogical sequence of activities if we had not brought the facts up their notice, to their notice. Our neighbors had repeated. This is the main clause, and main clause will not have had, it will have would have, right? So this had will be replaced by would have. Would have. Swapping of clauses are absolutely evident. You know, it's not mandatory that the sentence will always start with if. If I would have realized what a bad shape our library is in, I would have done something to arrest the deterioration. I would have done something. So main clause is absolutely fine, but there is a problem in if clause, that is would have, which is incorrect, and you will correct by replacing this would have with had. If I had realized. Actually, there is a big scope of creating questions based on conditionals. You may get questions under detection, sentence improvement. You will be provided with a lot of confusing options. Would have, you know, had, will have, would have been. So you can easily tackle those questions if you have the knowledge of the structure. If you had just hinted at your difficulty, I would most certainly help you. I would most certainly, if you had just hinted at your difficulty, अगर तुमने थोड़ा भी hint किया होता तुम्हारी समस्याओं के बारे में, I would most certainly help, right? This is incorrect. I would most certainly have helped you. Have helped you. Type 3. They now claim that they would have guided us if we would have requested them. So they now claim that they would have guided us if we would have requested. If we had requested. I would have asked him to leave our house immediately if my father would not have been at home and awake. If my father would not have been is incorrect. Had not been. If my father had not been. Had not been awake. Had not been at home and awake. My father told me that he would not talk to me if I do not attend to what he said. If I ask you what kind of clause is this, what he said, what kind of clause is this? My father told me that he would not talk to me if I do not attend. What is the confusion over here? My father told me that he would not talk to me. So you need to look at this sentence after that. He would not talk to me if I do not attend. So he would, this is what? He would not talk. This is type 2, and in type 2, if clause should be written in past indefinite, and past indefinite means what? This do will be replaced by did. If I did not attend to what he said. Right, absolutely, Loni. That is noun clause. It is noun clause because to is preposition placed before a noun clause. Had you indicated your choice clearly, this confusion would have been avoided. So what is the problem? After would, you will not use had. It should be have. So confusion would have been avoided. Now, what do you see? What do you see? In the main clause, and the main clause is written in passive voice. This is in passive voice. Had you indicated your choice clearly, this confusion would have been avoided. इसे avoid किया जा सकता था. Had you encouraged him in his endeavor, he would had succeeded. Had you encouraged him in his endeavor, he would have succeeded. If I was the king, I think after reading this much, you are absolutely clear that was will be replaced with were. If I were the king, I would change the face of my country. Hypothetical conditional. Had we known that there was a catch in the offer, we would not have accepted it. That is a typo error if at the end. So, what is the problem? Had we known that there was a catch in the offer, we would not have accepted it. Is there any error? That is past perfect and we would not have accepted. So there is no error. E. If you would have arranged these red flowers in a vase together some white ones, they would have looked pretty. So if you would have arranged, I think after reading this much, you are absolutely clear that it should be written in past perfect, and past perfect means what? You have to replace would have with had. You would have certainly completed the work in the allowed time had you planned it properly. So there is no error at all. You would have certainly completed the work in the allowed time had you planned it properly. So there is no error. This one is if wala clause. If you would have told me earlier, I would not have submitted by my papers. If you had told me earlier. If you had told me earlier. Every man is conditioned by the age in which he lives, and if he were to return to another age, he would not be happy. Is there any error? Again, whatever is written before and, that has nothing to do with the conditional thing, right? It's a general statement. Every man is conditioned by the age in which he lives. After and, what is written, like if he were to return to another age, he were, this is hypothetical, he would not be happy, would not, plus we first form the verb. So this is absolutely correct, no error. Had you not reached in time, we would have lost all our belongings. Had you not reached in time, we would have lost all our belongings. Again, no error. I would have enjoyed the journey more if the man in the berth below mine would not have snored all the time. If I ask you what is the profile of this particular part, yes, what is the profile? This is adjective clause. This is adjective clause which is actually defining this particular man. Again, if I ask you that, what is the profile of this mine? ये क्या है? So mine means my birth. Mine is pronoun. This below is what? Preposition. This is preposition. Preposition is placed before the pronoun, or you can simply open this mine as in my birth, and my birth is nothing but what? It is a noun phrase because my is possessive adjective and birth is what? B-E-R-T-H, sorry. This is B-E-R-T-H. So this is what? This is noun. So adjective plus noun is noun phrase. So I would have enjoyed the journey more if the man in the berth below mine would not have snored all the time. तो यहाँ पे सेंटेंस में कोई एरर है या नहीं है? बिल्कुल है. अब the man is the subject and would not have. So if wala clause will not take would not have. It should be if the man had not snored, and between the man and had not, whatever is written, that is actually describing this particular man. He would have lent me a pen if he was knowing I didn't have one. So here, he was knowing. He would have lent. He was knowing is incorrect. How would you correct this? If he had known. Now, if I ask you that what kind of clause is this? What kind of clause is this? What will be your answer? This is noun clause. This is noun clause because this is acting as an object of what? Object of verb known, right? So That is why we have discussed all these things at the start of our grammar, like the grammar primer, so that you could identify easily. Otherwise, in lengthy sentences, you may be trapped if you're not able to figure it out. So if he had known I didn't have one, right? So I didn't have one is the object of the verb known, and object will nothing but what? Noun clause. Launit, now it is clear. If you were Prime Minister of India, what steps would you have taken to end unemployment? What is the problem? How will you correct it? If you were Prime Minister of India, what steps would you have taken? Nahi. It is hypothetical. Would, first form of the verb. Would you take? Not have taken. Would you take? Had the police not reached there in time, the bandits had killed him. I think pretty easy to figure out. Had the police not reached there in time is the conditional clause, and the main clause again have had killed, which is incorrect. That should be replaced with what? Would have killed. So this had will be replaced by would have. Would have killed. The government warned the meat sellers that if they persist in charging unfair prices, their licenses would be cancelled. The government warned the meat sellers. Again, up till that, you need not give any heed. Whatever is written after that, आपको उस पर ध्यान देना है. If they persist in charging unfair prices, their licenses would be cancelled. They persist. This is present indefinite, right? They persist is what? This is present indefinite. So would is incorrect. Would will be replaced by what? Will be. This is type 1. Type 1 hai. Had this notification been amended earlier, we could have stopped the transfer of funds. Is there any error? What you have just learned in this class only, had this notification been amended earlier, this is written in which voice? Been is used. This is in passive voice, right? We could have stopped the transfer of funds. This is in active voice. So conditional clause in passive voice, main clause in active voice. If I ask you that what is the profile of the transfer of funds, then what will be your answer? What kind of phrase is this? The transfer of funds. What is that? That is noun phrase. Noun phrase is being used as an object of the verb stop. If I had realized what a bad teacher you are, I would not have come to you for any guidance. If I had realized what a bad teacher you are, again, the same case. If I ask you, what is the profile of this? Because if you didn't get this, you may be confused. If I had realized what a bad teacher you are, I would not have come. So as per the standard structure, it is had realized and would not have come is absolutely fine. Realized what? What a bad teacher you are. So this is again what? Noun clause as an object of realize. If I would have realized what a clumsy person you were, I would not have come with you to this place. If I would have realized, if I had realized, if I had realized what a clumsy person you were, I would not have come with you to this place. If he would not have confessed it himself, the crime could scarcely have been brought home to him. Again, the same problem. If wala clause will not take, would not have. This will be what? Had not. Had not accepted it. Had I realized how deeply you were committed to completing this work by today, I would not interrupt you so often. So I think आपको clear है? This is type 3. I would not have interrupted you. Again, if I ask you, had I realized how deeply you were committed to completing this work by today? This is what? This is again noun clause, which is acting as an object of the verb realized, right? If I ask you what is the profile of how over here, or how deeply for that matter, this is adverbial phrase. This is adverbial phrase of degree actually. It is talking about the degree, how deeply you were committed. If the streets would have been clearly marked, it would not have taken us so long to find out his home. If the streets would have been clearly marked, that is incorrect. If wala clause will not take would have been. Had been clearly marked. Had been clearly marked. And again, this is written in which voice? This is in passive voice. Had been marked. This is in PV, passive voice, because street को कोई और mark करेगा, खुद तो mark करेगा. It would not have taken us so long. So this is, again, there is no problem. यहीं उसी part में problem थी में. Had you informed me earlier, I would have certainly purchased the car from you. Had you informed me earlier, type 3, I would have certainly, would have, then you will go with the third form of the verb, would have purchased. I would have asked you for dinner if I had known that you are staying here tonight. Is there any error? I would have asked you for dinner if I had known that you are staying here tonight. No error at all. Again, if I ask you that you are staying here at night, is what kind of clause? Yes. What kind of clause is this? That is noun clause, as in object of known. His father would have been pleased to get him a wristwatch if he would have worked harder and secured higher marks in the university examination. Is there any problem? His father would have been pleased to get him wristwatch, would have been pleased to get him a wristwatch if he had worked harder. So yes, there is a problem. This would have will be replaced by had. If he had worked harder and secured higher marks in the university examination. If her grandfather would have lived 3 more days, he would have been 100 years old. If her grandfather would have lived, nahi, had lived. Now it is impossible. बेचारे चले गए grandfather. तो had lived. अगर 3 दिन और रह गए होते तो 100 साल के हो गए होते. Many of us bemoan our lack of foresight by complaining that if we would have bought property 20 years ago, we could have taken advantage of the recent real estate boom. If we would have bought, that is incorrect. If we had bought. ये दर्द बड़े सारे लोगों को होता है ना रियल एस्टेट में. So If we had bought property 20 years ago, we could have taken advantage of the recent real estate boom. Unfulfilled past possibility, could have. So this could have is what? Unfulfilled past possibility. And unfulfilled past obligation. I should have done this, He would never have taken the job if he had been knowing what great demands it would make on his time. If he had been knowing, if he had known, not knowing. And we will discuss about this stative verb thing as well in the verb, because it is connected with the adjective, verb, adverb, tense. So know belongs to the category of the verb of mental activity, and in general you will not use ing form with that, So had known. Again, what did great demands it would make on his time? That is what? Noun clause. If I had known this yesterday, I will have helped him. I would have helped him. Right? Now let me discuss the concept of stative verb as well. The point is, the following categories, and this is something which is very relevant for tenses as well. Following categories of verbs should not be written in continuous tenses in general, because in English grammar this is something which is pretty important. In general, because exceptions are always there. So if I ask you, this flower smells sweet. I am smelling this flower this flower is smelling sweet. If I ask you out of these three sentences, which one is correct, which one is incorrect, then what will be your call? What do you think? The flower smells sweet is correct. I am smelling this flower. This is also correct. And the flower smelling sweet is incorrect. So smell is the verb which belongs to the category of sense perception, right? It is a verb of sense perception. And verbs of sense perception are not used in continuous form, or it will not take V1 plus ing form, But what you see over here, that this sentence is absolutely correct. So the difference is what? The point of difference is this smells is called stative verb, right? You are talking about the state of a particular flower जो आपको रास्ते में चलते हुए सूंघने को मिला. आप जा रहे हो रास्ते में एंड फूल लगे हुए हैं और उनकी स्मेल आई और आपने अपनी राय दे दी. यू आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द स्टेट. So while you are talking about the state of anything, you can't be sure, or whatever your perception is, that will not be the universal truth, because each and every person will have different kind of abilities. Will have is not the correct model over here, right? May have, because individuals are different, their abilities, capabilities are different, right? कुछ standard आप बना सकते हो, but again अगर वही जो है फूल कोई कुत्ता सूंघ रहा है तो उसको शायद कुछ और स्मेल आएगी, बिकॉज डॉग्स हैव डिफरेंट लेवल ऑफ एबिलिटीज एज फार एज स्मेलिंग इज कंसर्न इन कंपैरिजन टू ह्यूमंस. सो वो उसके लिए वो शायद वो स्टेट अलग होगा. सो इफ यू कांट बी सर्टेन इन एनीथिंग, इफ यू आर नॉट श्योर इन समथिंग, you should not use continuous or V1 plus ing form. You have to go with indefinite form, which is present. That is why the name of the tense variant is indefinite, right? You can't be definite in talking about the state of anything which is based on your sense perception, because science lets us know that we have our limited abilities. We can see only Vibgyor range, which is visible range, right? We can hear from 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz only. We can't listen beyond that. That does not mean कि उससे ऊपर और नीचे साउंड नहीं है, या उससे ऊपर नीचे जो हम नहीं देख सकते वो है नहीं, वो है, बट दैट इज beyond our capacity, beyond our limitations. So that is why whatever we see, whatever we feel, whatever we hear, that is limited. That is limited. There is a lot which is beyond our abilities, and that is why sense perception will never be sure. And if that is not sure, you will not write in continuous. You will go with indefinite. I am smelling this flower. How is it different? This is called progressive verb. तो अगर उसी एक्शन को आप लिटरली कर रहे हो ना, तो आप उसमें ing बिल्कुल लगा सकते हो. आप फूल तोड़ करके नाक के पास सूंघ रहे हो, I am smelling this flower is all fine. There is no problem in that. This flower is smelling sweet. Again, it is incorrect because you are talking about the state of that particular flower, and in that case, you can't use continuous, right? Now, these categories are what? The first one, verbs of sense perception. Verbs of sense perception. So we have smell, we have sound, we have taste, feel, see, etc. Second is what? That is verbs of mental activity. And again, in mental activity, you can't be sure what you are believing, are thinking. That is your call. That is again not something which is universal and can be applied to each and every one. So the verb like believe, if you are saying like I am believing, that is incorrect. I believe, I assume, I presume, right? I consider, I think, right? Etc. Next one is what? That is verbs of possession. Verbs of possession. Because possession will never be permanent. That is not impermanent. That is not permanent means what? That is not definite. And not definite means what? You should write in indefinite form. So possession is like you have simply have, you have possessed as in verb, right? You have contain, belong, own, etc. Then you have verbs of emotion, of feelings, like love, like, hate, wish, etc. So we don't use these verbs in continuous in general. And whenever you use in continuous form, means ing form, then the meaning would be different. For example, if I write like I am having my lunch, so this sentence is absolutely correct. There is no problem. But if I say like, if I am having my lunch box in my bag, now this is incorrect. Because here, whenever I'm using I am having my lunch means what? I am eating my lunch. But when you are literally using this particular verb for possess, for possession, कि आपका लंच बॉक्स आपके बैग में है, तो वहां पे आप आईएनजी नहीं लगा सकते, या मैं अपना लंच बॉक्स अपने बैग में रख रहा हूं या कुछ भी ऐसा. दैट इज इनकरेक्ट. दैट इज इनकरेक्ट. लाइक सी. So if you're saying something like, I'm seeing her nowadays. I'm seeing her nowadays. Now this is absolutely fine. There is no problem in that. Because here seeing does not mean that, आप सामने उसको literally देख रहे हो. यहाँ पे मतलब हो गया मीटिंग से या डेटिंग से मतलब हो गया. तो ये बिल्कुल ठीक है यहाँ पे. There is no problem. There is no problem at all. ऐसे ही आप कहो कि I think this is this dress is not fit for your size. And next sentence is, don't disturb me I'm thinking about this puzzle. Now what you see here, both the sentences are absolutely fine. बिकॉज यहाँ पे जब आप आई थिंक कह रहे हो ना, तो जैसे हम किसी को राय जब दे रहे होते हैं, यार मुझे लगता है ना, मैं सोचता हूँ तुम्हारे पे सही नहीं है, मैं सोच रहा हूँ, हम बोलते जरूर है और मन करता है कि वी शुड यूज आईएनजी फॉर्म, बट दैट इज इनकरेक्ट. आई थिंक बिकॉज यू आर जस्ट टॉकिंग अबाउट योर प्रोजेक्शन फॉर दैट पर्सन. अब आप किसी के बारे में क्या राय रखते हैं, जरूरी नहीं कि वो भी अपने बारे में वैसे ही रखे. दैट इज योर प्रोजेक्शन. एंड वाइल यू आर प्रोजेक्टिंग योर ओन थिंग, यू कांट बी श्योर, एंड दैट इज वाई यू शुड गो विद इनडेफिनिट. अनिश्चित है आप. बट लिटरली जब आप सोच रहे हैं, अगेन वही वाली बात जो पीछे आपको बताया, यहां पे ये थिंकिंग बिल्कुल ठीक है. बिकॉज हियर इट इज प्रोग्रेसिव, इट्स अ प्रोग्रेसिव वर्ब. सो आप यू आर डूइंग सम सॉर्ट ऑफ ब्रेन स्टॉर्मिंग, यू आर थिंकिंग ओवर अ पजल, राइट? सो यू नीड सम टाइम इन आइसोलेशन, राइट? यू आर डूइंग ब्रेन स्टॉर्मिंग. वहां पे आप लिटरली सोच रहे हैं, और तब वर्ब में आईएनजी लगाने में कोई दिक्कत नहीं है. तो दिस इज नॉट लाइक ऐसा नहीं कि वो हर जगह पे होने वाला है. इस बात का ध्यान रखना है. इसीलिए मैंने शुरू में क्या लिखा, इन जनरल. दैट्स व्हाई आई यूज्ड इन जनरल. लाइक वी डू नॉट यूज दीज कैटेगरीज ऑफ वर्ब्स in continuous form in general, because the moment you use continuous form, they depict different meaning altogether. And if you are using that ing form for that particular meaning, then using continuous form or participle form is absolutely justified. There is no problem in that, right? There is no problem. Like I love you, I like you, I wish you a very happy birthday. I am wishing you is incorrect, because these are the emotions, and emotions are nothing but the energy in motion, and that the lifetime of a particular emotion is always less, short lived. प्यार अभी है, जरूरी नहीं कि हमेशा ही प्यार रहेगा वो, राइट? सो आप उसको इंडेफिनेट में लिखना, आई लव यू, आई लाइक यू, आई हेट यू, आई विश यू अ वेरी हैप्पी बर्थडे. इस साल समीकरण अच्छे हैं, आई विश यू, पता नहीं अगले साल विश करूं ना करूं, you know. And the moment you use ing form like I am loving you, the meaning is absolutely different. Now it's not just limited with the emotion and feeling. Now you got into the action of love. Now it became physical. I am loving you is absolutely physical. It's not limited with emotion. So the moment you put ing, the meaning will be absolutely different. If that is your intention, you want to use that particular word in that context, you are more than welcome to use that. But कहीं ऐसा ना हो कि जो भी मैं कहना चाहूँ बर्बाद करें अल्फाज मेरे। आप बताने जा रहे थे इमोशन और बता दिया एक्शन, थप्पड़ और पड़ गया। सो ये चीज़ों का ध्यान रखना है आपको, ठीक है। दिस वॉज ऑल्सो एन इम्पॉर्टेंट कॉन्सेप्ट एंड you get a lot of questions in tense as well from this particular topic, and this is a very crucial topic. This is a very crucial topic because it is connected with adjective, because stative verbs are modified by adjective. Smells sweet, not sweetly. It tastes delicious, not deliciously. So then we have stative verbs like become, turn, even simply be form of the verb like he is intelligent, right? He was stupid that night. So here only be form is also, again, that is called what? Stative verb, and they are modified by adjective only. So stative verbs are qualified by adjective. There are 2 to 3 things you need to remember related with the stative verb. They are described by, modified by, qualified by adjective, not adverb. Second thing was they are used in indefinite tense in general. Indefinite are perfect. Like मैंने ये सवाल ये क्यों पढ़ाना जरूरी समझा आपको, यहाँ पे देखो एक क्वेश्चन आया था जिससे मेरे दिमाग में हिट हुआ, ये दिस वन, यहीं से मेरे दिमाग में हिट हुआ, हैव बीन नोइंग, राइट। जैसे ही ये देखा तुरंत मुझे समझ आया कि भाई यहाँ पे हमें काम करना पड़ेगा, नहीं तो हम ये टेंस में भी पढ़ लेते हैं। तो अब यहाँ पे आपको क्या नजर आ रहा है? बीन नोइंग मीन्स व्हाट? इफ द सेंटेंस इज लाइक, let me write over here only. If it's like has been and then knowing, then this is again correct, because know will fall in the category of mental activity, and in general you will not be writing that in continuous. Then what should be the correct structure? Has known. Has known. In the same manner, if it is had been knowing, that should be written had known, right? If it is like is, am, are knowing, like the present continuous, if it is present continuous, then it will be in present indefinite, like know or knows as per the subject. And if it is past continuous, like was oblique were knowing, then it will be written in past indefinite, means what? Knew. And you do know, irrespective of the subject, you will always go with second form of the verb in the past indefinite. So this is something what you need to remember, because these are these two variants, like the continuous and perfect continuous. Only in these two variants we use V1 plus ing, right? And if verbs are from these categories, what I just mentioned, then you need to change that. If those verbs are used in perfect continuous forms, then you have to change from perfect continuous to perfect. And if they are written in continuous form simply, then you have to change them into indefinite, right? And these are the four variants possible. They'll ask you question based on these forms only, right? So do remember them. That's all for today's class. Let's catch up in the next class, and then we'll discuss about the advanced verb, which is non-finite, right? And hopefully in the next class we'll complete this topic as well. So I'll share the notes of these two classes, right? Chale, thank you very much everyone. Take good care of yourself. Good night.